Sorry.
If you're fortunate, you might actually be hearing us. If not, please let us know in chat, as you might detect by the different background. We got locked out of our normal classroom and we're scrambling to understand a different computer and audiovisual system and da. But we have an appropriately matched title. We will find out if yoga can help us solve technical problems. I think it probably targeted at other types of problems in life, but ancient solutions to ever-present problems. We welcome Francie and John McLeod and two friends that they will introduce as they proceed.
Okay, thank you, Nelson. So welcome, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And Nelson has known us for some time. We've known him for some time, but he knows us as John and Francie. But being members of the Hare Krishna movement, we also have Sanskrit names. His name is Haripada, which means a servant at the feet of God. And my name is Palini, which means one who offers the fruit of love to God. So all our names have meanings. Our friend here, Subudi Rai, I'm not exactly sure what his name means. I think it means the king of knowledge. Is that kind of close? What is the meaning of your name? Oh, okay. So it's a name of a famous saint from about 500 years ago in West Bengal. And our friend Vijayanath, your name means the happiness of knowledge, correct? Okay. So thank you very much for inviting us to come. I'll just give you a little background on why I came to Krishna consciousness. I was brought up in a strict Catholic family, and we attended Mass at the church, not only every Sunday, but also as much as possible in the early mornings on weekdays. So this was my favorite activity as a child, and especially when it came to the music, because I love Latin. The Latin language is beautiful, and the songs we used to sing in the church were heart melting to me. So I very much enjoyed that part of my childhood. And there's something in our tradition, the Krishna conscious tradition, that reminds me, it's like a carryover from my childhood, because when I was 7 years old, I was given first communion. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so that means the first time you get to taste the little bread that's offered to God. So when I tasted that, I became ecstatic. I felt so happy. And later, when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I learned that they cook and offer to God everything they eat. So before they eat anything, they cook with love and devotion and offer it to God. So then I put two and two together and I realized, hey, when I got my first communion, sorry for messing with my mask. When I got my first communion, that's why I felt so happy, because that food, that little wafer, however tiny it was made for God and it was offered to God. That is why I felt so happy. So that I made that connection in my mind, and I was very happy about that realization. So before we go on to our explanation about Krishna consciousness, I would like to give the floor to my husband so he can give a little background on himself. Can you stand here?
And while you're speaking, you can take off your mask. If
Oh.
you're far from people, that way
Thank
people on
you.
the camera might be able to.
Oh, that's so much easier. Thank you so much. Okay, so you can tell where you came from.
Yeah, I want to say that 2 days ago, I stepped on my glasses in my home. And they're not in real good connection right now. This one has a hole like this. Hole goes in and out. So I'm planning to go to some of these places.
With the lens back in.
Yeah, she helps me with all of these principal things. So anyway, my name is Hare Das, and the purpose of our life is to return to the spiritual world. Material world is a place which is generally a place of suffering, but the spiritual world is the world where all the beautiful and lovely people who have a heart full of love for God return to the spiritual. So there's a material world where people suffer, and there's a spiritual world where one can eternally remain in the spiritual world and be satisfied that I have Krishna to bow before and to love him. So in 1973 is when I joined Hare Krishna. Did a few foolish things in my life, but in this 1973 situation, I was blessed. Now, don't forget, this is sideways, okay? Because please forgive that mistake. So anyway, I
So
was with some.
1973.
Yeah, in 1973, we had a party at one house, and then late at night, I came to my own little house. I had a small home there. I was very much enthusiastic about what I saw with this book called Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita means the lover of God. This is Krishna, founder, Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So after Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and reading the books together with my friends, I was alone. And my other friends were nearby, but I was alone. And I read all of those 3 books, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I read those in 3 days. And the pages were 900 pages. So that's 300 pages per day to understand what was in that book. And the book was so meaningful to me that I just had to look in the very back of the Bhagavad Gita. I wanted to know where this Bhagavad Gita, yes, Bhaktivedanta Swami. So he has that book that he presented for all of the people throughout the world. So I was very excited. So I took up this little little, what do you call it? That used to be those small little cars, very small little cars.
Oh, Volkswagen.
Volkswagen. So I had a funky little Volkswagen. I know most people don't like funky Volkswagens, but this one worked as well. So I drove down there to the temple, and I walked into the temple room with all the other guests who came, and it was so exciting and ecstatic. I spent all 3 days there around the temple and among the other devotees, and I thought the rest of my life is going to be giving it to Krishna. I wanted to give everything I could possibly have to present and give to Krishna as the most important personality in my life. I'll just leave it with that now, just a short thing, and we'll let someone else speak on this behalf. Thank you very much for being so kind to let us come here.
Just brief. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. My name is Subudhara Das.
You can take your mask.
My name is Subudhara Das, and I'm from Russia. We're doing service now here in some village temple, priest, and also I'm cooking for deities. This is the ceremony of cooking. We are vegetarian, so this is very restricted. So what we do, we're using the fruits, vegetables, and this is actually very, very tasty food. And I wish you try this. So I came to Krishna consciousness a long time ago. Of course, not so long as senior. I came in 88. I was just came from army. I was 25 years old, and I met devotees. They impressed me because I was very like, a skeptical person. And I was looking at them and said, "What do they want from me? Why is it giving me this knowledge?" And they said, "We want to build here this beautiful building, and everybody can come and get something." So, but I saw that there's socks. The name of the socks, and there was false. I said, "I'm sorry, but you cannot buy even socks for yourself. How you will build this?" He said, "I am not taking care about myself. Whatever I have, if I collect something, I give it to the community to do something. And if anybody will give me something like the salt, I will." So it was for me like, I felt this very honest. And I like them. I started to communicate with them. And slowly, I attracted and stuff. Why it is important is that I am from Muslim region. It is a South Tajikistan. And religious is a part of life of Muslims. It's very important. The God, the religion, you dedicate yourself. And I had before questions about what is the life of to be. And because Quran, sometimes you have no questions than answers. And still, you want to know something. You want to find something very real. And when I started reading the books, actually Soviet time we had no questions. And I found Bhagavad Gita and paid the whole price they asked me because I was very interested. What is inside? And many things they gave me some answers. That's why I recommend everybody, if you have questions about who I am, you can find the answers. So I made these people and start to service with them. And I traveled in different countries. I left Pakistan and never go back because there is a little bit not good atmosphere for Hare Krishna. We have no temple there. After Soviet time, it's become more Muslim place. And actually my family also, we are staying in India. And for many years we're in Mayapur, where I spent out. But now here, because I have good relations with the Shauri Prabhu, who is also from Mayapur, his family and him, right? So we need some help because we have a temple and we need more stuff. So even during the pandemic, somehow, I don't know, I got my visa before pandemic, but the whole flight was canceled. But suddenly, a year ago, they said, "Yeah, now you can fly, you can go." Hare Krishna.
Very, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Vidyananda. So I'll share my testimony as briefly as I can. I graduated from UVM in Burlington, Vermont, and I was, I think, 24 years old. I graduated a few years earlier, and I was living the life over there down next to Lake Champlain. And I came home one day, and one of these Bhagavad Gitas was there on the kitchen countertop in my apartment. This was very strange because at that time, me and my friends were partying and just doing all sorts of naughty stuff. So seeing any kind of book in this apartment was quite strange. And especially this book, which, I mean, instantly struck me. On the cover, you can see it's like a battlefield. The edition that I got was the orange covered one, which has some big war elephants on it. And Bhagavad Gita, I'd never heard of that before. I could just guess that it was Indian and, ancient. So I read the back cover. And yeah, there's this quote by Thoreau, which really struck me. Thoreau says, quote, "In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial." So that's a very strong quote there. There's also a quote from Emerson and Gandhi. So that was pretty much it for me. I read those 3 quotes, and I've always been an ancient text philosophy fan anyway. And I'd never heard of this before, so I got really empowered and I read it cover to cover. Took me maybe more than a month or so. And by His divine grace, I was able to accept it in my heart rather instantly, actually. And without meeting any devotees, without going to the temple, without doing anything, without getting any of these, without doing any of that stuff. And yeah, I had a mystical experience of the super soul himself, who lives within the heart of every living entity, and which is, of course, in the Gita. And shortly after that, I ended up in Thailand, and then Vietnam, and then China. I was teaching English and preaching, and just, stuff happened. God came into my life, and He, gave me a big 180. And I'm very happy for that, but I'm also happy to be back here. And we have some lovely prasadam here for you. This is called a burfi, which is basically ice cream, actually. It's cream and sugar in a different form. It's very delicious. And I won't take any more time. Thank you.
I liked how Vegeta told us that God gave him a 180 turnaround. My husband and I just did a 360 turnaround, because in 2015, first of all, in the year 1997, we came over from the West Coast to North Carolina. We moved 3,000 miles with a U-Haul and without a house to move into, without a job. And so it was a leap of faith, but we felt inspired. And we built a house in Sandy Ridge, North Carolina, 2 hours from here approximately. And we lived there for 18 years. So at the end of those 18 years, we flew over to India with 1 suitcase each to dedicate our lives to sharing this knowledge of Krishna consciousness with others. We knew that Krishna is already very popular in India. They understand that Krishna is one name of God, God the Father. It means the person who attracts every soul. Every one of us is a soul, and we are automatically attracted to God. That's just the way it is. That's how we're created, because God creates us so that He can have loving, enjoyable relationships with each and every one of us. Anyway, so we knew that Krishna was already popular in India, but we wanted to give back to India something that we had received. Our guru, our teacher, had left Calcutta in 1965 at the age of 69. He had taken a freighter, which is a cargo ship, all the way down around Cape Comorin, all the way up through the, what do you call that, ocean? No, the little one that's off the west coast of India. Anyway, he had gone all the way across the ocean to New York. Boston first.
Yeah.
Then up to New York.
Boston.
They stopped in Boston. And when he got off the ship, He didn't know whether to turn right or left. He only had 40 rupees in his pocket, which is barely $1 now. And he had come there, speaking of a wing and a prayer, he had come there just on the order of his spiritual master, who told him to go to the Western countries and preach about Krishna in English. So he had done that for us. He had come here as an old man and he had chanted Hare Krishna with these little hand symbols under a tree in Tompkins Square Park in Manhattan. He had sat there every day for days and days and weeks and months. And a few young people started to notice him and they would come and join him. And gradually he kind of got a following. And he started to invite them, why don't you come over to my little storefront? Because I give a little talk on the Bhagavad Gita every week. So the kids started coming. And when they heard the Bhagavad Gita, it was like, this all makes sense. This is answering all kinds of questions I've had ever since I was a teenager. So Srila Prabhupada, as we call him, our guru, I don't know if you could see this picture very well, but anyway, so he sacrificed his life pretty much to come over to America. And from his landing in Boston, he went up to New York and, started chanting under the tree. And then from New York, he sent some of his fledgling disciples over to San Francisco, and they opened a little temple there. And then from San Francisco, they started a place in Montreal, and they went over to England. Whole bunch of little centers opened up in America and in the European countries. And from there, it went back to India. And we became ISKCON in July of 1966. So ISKCON is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And many people said, no, you should name it the International Society for God Consciousness. That would be more ecumenical. But Prabhupada said, no, we're just going to say Krishna consciousness because we want it to be unique. We want to be straightforward with people that this is about Krishna. Yes, Krishna is God the Father, but in the Western countries, not very many people knew that. They had, most of us had never even heard the name Krishna or Rama. But very, very quickly, the Hare Krishna movement moved all over the planet. And so we feel very deeply grateful for what we have learned from Srila Prabhupada. And my husband and I in 2015 flew back to India with 2 suitcases. We stayed in a hotel and we started traveling all over the country, just chanting the holy names of God and sharing with people the Bhagavad Gita. And, they kind of had an attitude, like, hey, we already know about all this stuff. Why are you guys coming and preaching to us? But it turned out that they didn't know everything. And gradually, people started coming to our temples and tasting our cooking and really, enjoying being there and feeling spiritual inspiration. So my husband and I flew over there and we started traveling around the country, chanting Hare Krishna, sharing Bhagavad Gita, and we feel very, very happy to say that we spent about 12 years there. We finally got a little house to live in, And from there, we would continuously travel around India and Sri Lanka, which is, by the way, a gorgeous place. It's like a heavenly planet, as we Hare Krishna say. And then just a few months ago, our daughter said, "What's taking you guys so long to come over here? We're missing you. The kids haven't seen their grandpa yet." So I got on a plane and came over to North Carolina. And then my husband came a few months later. So now we have returned to Sandy Ridge, North Carolina, where we built our house. We don't live in that house anymore. Somebody else bought it from us. But we feel like we've returned home to Sandy Ridge. We really love it there. And we met some wonderful devotees there that we had not known before. Saw all of our old friends from there. So 360. We made it 360. So now, without further ado, we would like to share a little bit what we're talking about when we say chanting the names of God with music. It's called kirtan, and we would like to do that with you now for a few minutes. So I will play this little German instrument called harmonium. It's a hand-pumped organ. My husband will play kartals, that are little handheld miniature cymbals. These are ancient instruments that have been around for thousands of years. Our friend Subhuti will play the mridanga. A mridanga is a two-headed drum that is known to actually speak. These drums can be, you can learn how to play them in such a way that they actually speak a mantra. So anyway, that's a little technical, but okay, our dear friend Vijayanda. I have another picture to see.
It's okay.
You'll just,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll start out with a prayer to our spiritual master, our guru, because that's how we always start out.
Should we go to the mantra too?
Yeah, that's a very good idea. This is the first time I have put together a presentation for a university audience, and I totally spaced out on bringing a poster with the Maha Mantra on it. So we'll just tell you the Maha Mantra. It goes Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you have your phone or your computer, you could actually look it up. Maha Mantra, M-A-H-A, mantra. It means, Maha means great, and mantra means deliver the mind. Mana means mind, and tra means to deliver. So this is the great chanting for deliverance of the mind from illusion. We think that we are these bodies, but actually we're not. We're the soul, as Vijayananda said. We are the soul inside, and the soul is giving consciousness to the entire body. So mantra, Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we do kirtan in a call response fashion. One person leads the kirtan and does one verse of the chant, and then he pauses while the audience responds. So you'll see that's how we do it. Okay, so you're welcome to join us. So first we'll start out with a prayer to our spiritual master. Then we'll continue with a prayer to the Lord who came to this earth planet 500 years ago to spread this yoga of chanting the names of God. And then we'll go on to the Hare Krishna mantra.
Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimati Bhakti
So this Maha Mantra, it actually has a meaning. It's composed of three names. Hare, or it's actually Hara, but in the vocative tense, it's pronounced Hare. And Krishna and Rama. So the name Hara, these are three names. Hara is the feminine energy of God. And she is always addressed first because the mother represents the father and she intermediates between us and our father. So at least in ancient cultures, that was true. So when we call on our spiritual mother first, then she turns around and tells God the Father, your children are calling you. Please pay attention. Please, give them your mercy and your blessings and your grace. So then Krishna is as we said before, is a name for God, which means he who attracts all souls. So everyone is a soul, even not just in human bodies, but in animal bodies, and fish, birds.
I say one really quick thing.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
right. Krishna attracts all souls, but Krishna also means all attractive.
Uh-huh.
So Krishna himself has all of the attractive qualities we look for. He's all beautiful, all knowledgeable, all youthful. He's never older than 16 years old in his bodily form, and so on. So we really like him, actually. Once we see him, we actually really like him.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, in this title, Bhagavad Gita, it means the song of God. Bhagavan is another name of God, and it means exactly what he was talking about, that God has all attractive qualities to the fullest degree. He's the most beautiful or handsome. He's the most famous person. He's the wealthiest person. He's the most knowledgeable person. He's the most renounced, and he's the strongest person. So we all find ourselves attracted to someone who's very famous, a celebrity. We might be a fan of somebody, somebody who's very popular. Also, a person who's very wealthy attracts attention. Someone who's very beautiful becomes popular, etc., etc. So God has the greatest degree of all those attractive features. Thank you. So, and the name Rama is the third name in the Maha Mantra. Rama means the reservoir of all pleasure. So God himself he says in the Bhagavad Gita, let me see if I can find this really quick. This Bhagavad Gita consists of 18 chapters. And the particular verse I wanted to share with all of you, it's written in the format of a verse or a text, and then a translation into English, and then a purport, which tells the meaning, goes into a little deeper meaning. So it's easy to follow, easy to understand. Sorry for being so slow. Pitaham asya jagato, mata data pitamaha, vedyam pavitram omkara. This is in Sanskrit. Riksama yajrevacha. So the translation is, I am the father of this universe. So God the Father is speaking, and he's, reiterating, you already know I'm God. I'm just telling you again, I am the Father, I am the mother, I am the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge. Whatever knowledge we gain should lead us to God. That is the original purpose of all knowledge. The purifier and the syllable Om. We've all heard Om like that. That is actually a sound representation of God. I never knew that until I joined the Hare Krishnas. So when we call the name Rama, we're calling out to the reservoir of all pleasure. And he's also called the support. He's the support or the shelter for all living beings. So that's so when we chant this Maha Mantra, we're praying, my dear mother, my dear Lord, please allow me to serve you. It's a very simple meaning, very simple prayer, but it's liberating. It helps lift us out of the anxieties of our daily life, which we all experience way too much of. So for those who are intelligent, it is said in these scriptures, for those who are intelligent in this day and age, they will take up the chanting of the names of God. So it doesn't matter what religion you profess, as long as you chant a bona fide name of God, it is perfectly acceptable. But that is the method that's recommended for this age for liberating the mind from the trauma of sound pollution and all other kinds of pollution. So that's about all I had prepared to say. If anyone has questions, we welcome your questions, or if you have any comments or realizations, we would love to hear from you. And that goes for all of you out there in Zoom land as well.
Those of you in Zoom land will need to let us know if the microphones work well enough that you can hear questions from within the room. You don't know where the microphone is in here. My curiosity, if you can risk a generalization, there are some Christian monks that have prayers every few hours through the day. There are some Christians that going to church twice a year is the extent of their obviously externally visible contemplation or worship. A typical, and Muslims pray, what, 5-7 times a day?
Yeah.
A typical devotee, if they're not a reverend or a missionary, how often are they intentionally chanting or meditating or focusing on the other?
Well, we have a very nice experience every day because we get up in the morning quite early and dress ourselves with these devotional clothes, and we go to the temple, and at 4 and
30.
and 4:30 in the morning, we begin our chanting, and we chant for a full 1.5 hours. Then there's another kirtan with another about more time being utilized for that, and then we walk and we use our beads. These are called beads. These beads that we use.
Did you know it has these?
So these, there's 108 beads on this chain here, and that constitutes 1 round. So we do, if you're initiated like myself, you vow to do 16 rounds every day, which is quite a bit. And that's
108 daily.
So that's 108 times 16, which is about 2 hours if you're going kind of fast, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our vow that we take at the time of diksha, or in English it means initiation. But, we promise to chant at least 16 rounds of japa every day on our feasts. And we also do, like my husband said, we have congregational singing of the names of God and prayers. And all in all, if we count how many hours we do this type of prayer during the day, it adds up to about 5 hours minimum.
That's usually 4 hours in the morning, and then
And 1
some
hour
other-
in the evening
and in the evening, there's another
ceremony.
opportunity in the ceremony, and there's another beautiful prayer through these beads. So it's a very auspicious thing for all of us to give some thought and feeling.
Thank you for your good question.
I only got a glimpse as it went by. Someone in chat asked, I think their question was, what is the connection between yoga and Krishna?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yoga means to connect. And Jesus talked about take up your yoke and follow me. So yoke comes from the word yoga. And also the word religion means to again connect, because free means again and ligio means connect. Just like we use the word ligament, that comes from the Latin ligio. So to practice yoga is actually supposed to bring us to God. But it has been so perverted in the last so many centuries that people have forgotten that when you practice yoga, you're supposed to be connecting with the Lord in the heart. So that's the connection. Is that okay?
Can I say one more thing on that?
Yes, please.
So in the Bhagavad Gita, this is, well,
They
Krishna.
can't see you. You
Oh,
want to
yeah,
go?
yeah. So Krishna defines yoga in the Gita. It's chapter 2, verse 48. And I can paraphrase it by head. It's a very broad definition. And Krishna says basically it's moderation. That's how he defines it, because when you have a baseline of moderation through all your activities, and not eating too much or too little, not sleeping too much or too little, those are the examples. Right?
Yeah.
That's like the baseline you need. And then from that, you can engage in these multiple higher types of yoga, which he does talk about explicitly in the Gita. So there's karma yoga, which is the yoga of action. Karma just means action. Any kind of action at all is karma. And so karma yoga is when you do an action, but you renounce the fruit of the action. So most of us, we do things for fruit. We go to college to get a degree, to get a job. There's always a thing at the end. But karma yoga means doing something just for the sake of itself. And in that process, you basically the happiness and the stress, the pleasures and the pains become more and more dull. And that gives you more focus towards higher, subtler things like God. So there's karma yoga, and the next basic yoga Krishna talks about is jnana yoga, which means knowledge, yoga of knowledge. Jnana is where we get gnosis or Gnostic. In English, it's actually the same word. GN in English is JN in Sanskrit. That you could just call it philosophy. Jnana yoga is philosophy. It's studying something and then realizing, integrating it into your character, just with knowledge. And finally, there's bhakti yoga. That's what we're doing here. That's like pure devotional service directly towards God, through chanting, through offering food to God, through
Offering whatever you do.
whatever you can.
Everything you do. When you go to work, you offer that to God. When you go home, whatever you do at home, you offer that to God. It's practical devotional service. And this is the thing that I like the most about Krishna consciousness, is that when I was a young child, we were told to love the Lord thy God, thy whole heart, thy whole soul, and thy whole mind, and to love thy neighbor as thyself. Okay, that's all well and good, but how do you practically go about that? How do you love God? Nobody could ever answer that for me until I met Srila Prabhupada. And he explained to me that everything that you do, everything that you eat, everything that you give away, and all austerities that you perform, you know, whenever you fast or whenever you do something difficult, it should be always an offering to God. And that just really clicked for me. That made me feel so happy to know, okay,